You're listening to Ray Hadley in the morning on 2GB 873 and network stations across Australia.
We have been busy with many things over the past few months, obviously preoccupied with the virus, but that doesn't mean we've forgotten other stories like the Powerhouse Museum. Now, you know if you live in New South Wales that the Berejiklian government wanted to close the one down at Ultimo and move it out to Parramatta. Inner city residents put on a blue, so the government caved. And once Don Harwin was out of strife with the courts, he came back into the frame and he announced, along with Dominic Perrottet, that they'd have two Powerhouse Museums, the original one at Ultimo and a new one at Parramatta. Problem: the one at Parramatta would see a magnificent old Victorian building called Willow Grove knock base over apex, and a similarly placed building, St George's Terrace, a great example of 1880s architecture, also being knocked base over apex so they could put the museum there, which I always found contradictory. We got a museum housing historical items, significant items from our past, being built on a site that previously contained a rather significant building, which is, of course, protected by heritage listings. That doesn't make any difference when it comes to government, of course. The CFMEU took up the cause and we joined forces. I haven't spoken to Darren Greenfield for some time. He's the State Secretary for the CFMEU Construction Division, New South Wales. I wanted to see where we're up to. Darren, good morning to you.
Morning, Ray. How are you, mate?
Not bad, pal. So we haven't had a yarn for a while. Have we had any traction? Have we got anywhere with the government or not?
Mate, it's been a little while. They came back to us. Borgia did. I think last time I spoke to you, Harwin had booked a meeting in with me. He's now postponed that meeting twice and hasn't sat at the table yet with us, which I find a little bit disturbing that he can't sit at the table and have a discussion. But Borgia with others put a proposal to us, which I got over to you about, still pulling the buildings down, moving them to another place in Parramatta.
Insanity.
Yeah, it is insanity. We had a discussion, obviously, with the community out there. We don't support that. Our Green Ban supports, as we've discussed before, keeping these buildings in the situation they're in that place for generations in the future. And we just say it is insanity to have a plan to move these buildings, and the community says the same thing. It has to stay where it is. And we once again call on this government to... I've been told they are looking at redesigning for the floods, because miraculously they missed apparently the extent of the flooding there, so we've been told that they are doing redesigns around the flooding, redesign the building and keep these two magnificent buildings in the situation they're in.
Well, David Borgia is normally a pretty smart bloke. He's the Western Sydney Director of Business Chamber. Is this madness? Has he had a late night in the tolls or something? What he said? What, you take it apart brick by brick, or whatever by whatever, and then move it up the road somewhere? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, he is, mate. And they dangled the carrot to us with a few conversations around apprentices and things like that. Or,
you're too smart to tumble for that, Darren. You're too smart for that, I think.
Definitely, Ray. We won't be selling out the community out there. In regards to a carrot getting dangled like that, there's been no interest from this government for long periods of time in apprentices and TAFE and that, so we won't be falling for that, definitely.
I just thought of lateral thinking here. Just up the road is Bankwest Stadium, and I discovered yesterday that there are koala habitats inside Bankwest Stadium. I'll try and get the map down Parramatta River over the Lennox Bridge and see if we can find some blue shading somewhere near Willow Grove to similarly tell the government, well, hang on, you've made it blue, we can't do anything about it because there are koalas in and around both buildings, including Willow Grove.
Yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great to look at that.
Well, it appears that the blue shading, Darren, is just arbitrary, so you and I can put it there and no one's going to ask us any questions.
I'm sure I've got a blue pencil in the office here somewhere.
Do a bit of colouring in. So what's the next step? Now, you said Harwin's been committed to 2 meetings and hasn't fronted. Where were you having the meetings?
At my office or via Zoom was either option. He approached me for the first meeting, and as I said, I find it disturbing that he's not willing to sit at the table. It's like, if there's not an answer that is suitable to them or an outcome that's suitable to them, they don't want to sit at the table. Well, to me, this is the response they've given the community out of Parramatta, and the people in New South Wales. And as I said, mate, once again, I call on them to come and sit at the table, have the discussions, put everything on the table, and listen to what the community is saying. And
well, at the very least, Jeff Lee should be out there talking to you. He won't win the seat next time it's up for grabs on the back of this alone. He'll get the punt,
Definitely.
the acting sports minister, member for Parramatta, on this alone, Jeff Lee. And he needs to actually pick up the phone to Don Harwood and say, how come you're not meeting with Darren and others about what we're going to do about there, because it's a damn mess. And they've shown how flexible they are, Darren. I mean, whenever they were discussing about bringing it to Parramatta and closing down Ultimo, we won't be moved. We will not do it. It's going to Parramatta. All of a sudden, they will at Don Harwood not social distancing with the Treasurer, Dom Perrottet, who pushed him away, if you remember that rather farcical scene. And then they say, after much thought and representation from inner city people, we've decided we'll have two. One down there and one out there. I mean, so they're certainly flexible enough to do that. They should be flexible enough to do this and move it somewhere else other than the banks of the Parramatta River.
I agree, mate. They definitely can be flexible, and I think they should be flexible and listen to the community, because, as you said there, the sports minister, he will not have a position out there, because the community are up in arms. They're not going to cop this from a government of not listening to them and just running ramshot across the top of everyone. We're not going to allow that to happen, obviously, with our green ban there. It stands, and as the community have said, we say the same thing. I'll tell myself to excavators, mate, they're going to bulldoze them buildings. That is not going to happen.
All right, well, stay solid and we'll have a win eventually, I hope. Thanks, Darren, for updating me. We'll stay in contact, mate. Thanks very much for that.
Thanks for your time, Ray. Talk soon.
Well, Darren Greenfield, State Secretary of the CFMEU, Construction Division, New South Wales, a green ban. Well, I don't know how they're going to get over the top of a green ban, because if Darren says it's not getting knocked over, it won't get knocked over, because there'll be no one there to knock it over. And the last thing you want is an unedifying blue between, working class people who are there to build something and the New South Wales state government.